Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Hi. Welcome to episode 23 of the APE Audio Podcast, Saturday edition.
Yeah.
We're sitting down with Tennyson King.
Hello.
How's it going, man?
Good. Oh, one go closer.
How's it going, man?
Good. How are you?
Fresh into the hangover.
Yes.
Fresh off
Fresh
of
in
a
the start of the hangover.
really interesting sounding tour through China.
Yeah.
When did you get back?
Like first week of April, I got back.
Okay.
So it's been a little bit, but I was in Montreal doing some studio stuff.
Yeah, man. I saw you shredding the keys out there. Holy shit.
The MIDI keyboard.
Yeah.
It pretty much play itself.
I feel like if you can nail it on the MIDI keyboard, like you must just be an absolute god on the on the ivory.
I don't think so. Not yet.
Okay, well, Ian and I will beg to differ.
Yeah.
Who was the artist you were working with?
Someone named Danielle Polari from Thunder Bay.
Cool.
Yeah.
That track sounded really nice.
Yeah, she's got a really cool kind of Amy Winehouse, but not. I don't know, like a little bit more intimate almost.
Right.
A little more
Okay.
character.
Yeah. It sounded like something I would be. I mean, Amy Winehouse kind of had this like abrasive like top level to her.
Yeah.
Where the track you were working on, I was like, oh, I could listen to this in like a jazz lounge or something. Like it was like, pretty close.
Yeah, a
to
little
that.
bit more chilled out.
Yeah. Okay, so fresh back from tour. Do you got any cool stories and stuff?
Well, there's a lot of stories. I'm sure they'll unfold. Sorry, I'm chewing my hulls.
Oh, that's fine.
That's all.
What kind of halls? What's the flavor?
I think it was honey lemon or something.
Honey lemon.
Oh, good choice.
I'm sure more stories will unfold, but as we go. But China's a crazy. I don't know if you guys have ever been.
No.
in China before.
No.
My
I've
father
actually-
spent a lot of time there, and he's like in love with the
Oh, yeah?
place. Yeah,
Mhm.
Really?
but I've never had the opportunity.
Yeah, it'd be so cool to go.
Yeah,
It's wild. It's like because it's kind of like here. I mean, it's a first world established country, but so it has almost everything we have, but it's just totally different because of the culture and the language. So it's like kind of just being plucked from one. Like it's a weird juxtaposition of just being placed in this whole new area, but there's still trains and transit and everything
Sure.
is
Yeah.
established.
Still like
so
the
it's-
whole like city kind of dynamic.
yeah,
Big
exactly.
city dynamic.
yeah. I feel like it would be strange because there's familiarities that you would have when you go there.
yeah.
But I'm sure it quickly becomes apparent that it's much different. A very like the way the base society functions is completely different.
Yeah, for sure. And the language thing is just crazy too, because everyone there pretty much speaks Chinese. Unless you're in Beijing or Shanghai, you'll get more English speakers.
Right.
But there's some provinces that just like don't speak any English. So you pretty much if you're there for a while, you have to learn Chinese to kind of survive.
How good's your Chinese?
It's not that good.
So you
Good
try
enough
stay
to
away
find
from
you a
the,
washroom and a meal.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
can I've been practicing because I actually toured China twice. I did October 2018 and I did it again in March.
Okay,
That's
cool.
what I just did. And then in October, I realized how shitty my Chinese was. So I was like,
What was it that set it off?
it was just the fact that I couldn't, I was on stage and I was trying to talk some Chinese and I couldn't at all.
Everybody laughed.
Well, they didn't,
Or do they just
they
blankly stare at it?
well, it's more so like, because when I play solo, my October tour was solo.
Yeah.
And when I do solo shows, I tend to tell a lot of stories,
Sure.
especially in English-speaking countries. So, and it was my first two shows, and I just kind of, I don't even know, I just didn't click that I was in a whole different place where people speak a different language, and I just kind of...
You went into the old
I
routine.
just did my thing, and nobody understood me. So it just felt...
Wow.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so
I feel like you could like in a situation like that, like the heaviness in the air must have been so real.
Yeah. I mean, they love the music and they dig it all, and I think they still appreciate hearing English, but
Right.
but then if I want to actually connect through a story or talking, then that's gone.
Yeah, of
right?
course.
So I tried to slowly sneak Chinese into my sets of stage banter, and it just was not like I just couldn't do it. I didn't know the words. And
Did you rehearse a lot for it?
well, so what happened was after my China tour, I toured in Australia for 3 months in between.
Jeez.
And during that tour, I was listening to a Chinese learning podcast.
Okay. Yeah,
And
I was just
then-
about to ask like what avenue you were going about like learning.
Yeah, so I was
learning
doing
the language.
podcasts because I was driving around everywhere in Australia.
Yeah.
So it was kind of the best thing I could find.
Sure.
And it's helped a bit, but still pretty like.
What are the structures? I'm kind of curious about this. What are the structures of like a language learning podcast? Like, is it set up as if you're a child listening to like Sesame Street and they're like teaching you like basic phonics, or
I mean,
is it
I
like a
guess-
little more like meaty and advanced?
I guess some could be. The one I was listening to is called Coffee Break Chinese.
Mhm.
Apparently, they do like coffee break, whatever the language is. It's
Okay.
like
Okay,
a
cool.
big podcast company.
Sure.
So the way it's just a dude, I think a Scottish dude, and then a Chinese lady, who the Chinese lady speaks English and Chinese,
Mhm.
and the guy is essentially learning Chinese from her.
Oh wow.
So you
that's-
kind
that's
of, like,
really interesting.
do
You
it
learn like
together.
alongside him.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
yeah, and they start pretty. I mean, they start pretty from the basic, like
Yeah.
scratch out, as if knowing nothing. So yeah, so it's pretty good. I think I haven't tried other avenues yet, so I don't know. It's hard though. I guess we're trying to. I mean, because you're essentially just memorizing words
Yeah, of
with
course.
no like.
I mean,
not
that's
reading
even been my
anything.
problem learning French over my whole life. Like we live in
Right.
a half French speaking country.
Yeah,
and
nobody speaks.
I yeah, I
Yeah.
just memorized words, but if you ask me to put together like say something in English and then throw it into French, there's no way it's gonna happen.
Yeah. Yeah, the language stuff is hard, man. It's like such a specific side of your brain.
Right. So towards the end of the tour, were you
Yeah.
able
So
to communicate a little bit
yeah,
better?
I was getting better for
Yeah.
sure. Like by the end of the March tour, I could say more on stage.
Mhm.
I mean that part of the tour I was with a band too, so I didn't have to like. tell us
Right.
my
Yeah, I was
stories.
curious about that. Where did you like link up with the band? Is it people that you knew from before, or you
Yeah,
just
so
put
the
call out?
band I met in October, when I did that solo tour, I was in a city called Kunming, which is in the province of Yunnan, which is near Thailand. So it's like
Okay.
a southern
Sure.
part of China. And yeah, I met an American guy who was playing banjo, and he'd been in China for 10 years, just living and playing banjo, playing music.
So I saw a video of you guys traveling on a train. Was that
Yeah.
the same fellow?
Yeah. So it's those
Cool.
two dudes. And then one guy was from Australia, and he has been in China for about like a year or two. And the two of them are in a band together that started in China.
Mhm. That's really
so-
cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's actually interesting. There's a lot of expats kind of randomly around
Scattered
China
around,
who's
yeah.
like
that's
who
really
play
interesting.
music
I
and
guess
stuff.
like
Yeah.
even if you're having a rough time like adjusting to the culture, you can find culture that's a little bit closer to
Yeah.
what
Yeah.
you're used to.
Yeah, for sure. And it helps, I think, when you're like, I mean, everyone who's living there that's an expat is trying to learn the language.
Right.
Especially in this province I'm talking about, it's pretty much like Chinese.
Okay.
So it's not like Beijing or Shanghai where you can get away with not knowing Chinese. Yeah, so I met them in October, and the drummer is actually from China/Mongolia, so he was a local. And actually having him in the band was good because he didn't speak English. So I actually the banjo player spoke Chinese, so he was technically my translator. So
Okay.
because I had a
Cool.
translator for both tours,
Right.
because it's still like you need it for the business side of it.
Yeah, of course.
But I got to practice speaking to the drummer a lot as well, because I had to communicate with him during the shows and rehearsals, like like just playing the songs and everything.
Yeah. So how does that process work? So it's one thing trying to speak another language, but music can be a bit more of a universal
Yeah.
Yeah.
language. So did you find the barriers to be lessened when you're trying to like get some music across as opposed to
Yeah.
just hold a
Do they
general
know, like,
conversation?
Theoretical like terms, like what like do you converse with other musicians like with theory? Do you say like, okay, we're gonna do in the key of this and whatever?
Yeah,
And
I
they
mean,
just like no or
well, the key. Yeah, I guess it's the same theory.
yeah.
And then you could just say it. I actually don't know how to say the keys stuff in Chinese because I was
Okay.
talking more rhythm stuff to him.
Okay.
But yeah, I mean, yeah, like music is that kind of universal language, so
Yeah.
it's simpler to kind of. I mean, just by him watching me, kind
Yeah,
of thing, you
sure.
get the groove and stuff. But what's interesting though is a bit of the structure of songs, because in China, they don't necessarily have exposure to all the types of music we do because of their government, right?
Right.
So like blues
Okay.
didn't get there till maybe like 10 years ago or something.
Really?
Yeah,
Or
there-
maybe a little bit, but yeah, roughly 10, 20
Interesting
years.
So do-
anecdote here. Like,
Yeah.
there's a couple Chinese artists that I listen to on like Spotify, and the sound is like something like you're reliving like the grunge era of like the 90s, and that's like
Really?
super popular there,
Yeah.
like within like the last decade, let's say.
Yeah.
It's strange how there's like a latency.
Yeah, exactly.
So do you think the evolution of like how what music kind of stands in the forefront in the mainstream, I wonder if it's going to evolve in like the same
right?
Yeah,
The same
take the
order.
logical
Yeah, that's
path.
an interesting point.
Because
I
like seeing
mean-
how blues is just coming in now, like only until recently, like it's kind of blowing me away. I didn't really know that.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it's like interesting point about the evolution the evolution of the music there. I mean, I guess it depends where they pull influences from. If more Americans go and
Oh.
play like stadiums and stuff, then yeah, it might lean towards that, right?
Yeah.
But if
yeah.
they get people who are more, I don't know, like indie or alternative, then they might go towards that too. So it's kind of, that's the funny thing about China, because they have bands and they're creating stuff, but I mean, I guess it's like anywhere, right? You're heavily influenced by
What's around?
what you
Yeah.
hear.
It reminds me of this episode of Futurama where there's like these aliens like way far off in a distant galaxy, Omicron Persei 8, I believe, and they're getting like they're just like receiving Friends broadcasts, and they're like, "Oh, this is amazing."
Just binge watching.
Yeah. Well, okay. With that in mind, did you hear any distinctly unique sounds to the areas you were traveling through that you wouldn't necessarily hear in North America?
I mean, I tried to. One of the things I love about traveling and playing music is actually trying to find music of the culture and the people more. So
Yeah.
I did kind of specifically try to hunt down or meet people who played traditional
Cool.
instruments. And I mean, China's really cool too, because it's got like hundreds of different ethnicities, right?
Yeah.
It's not just like
Right.
Chinese. There's like so many smaller ethnicities and dialects of it, and each people and ethnicity have kind of their own style of culture and music
Mhm.
too. So I discovered there weren't too many bands I discovered. There was a few, but just kind of seeing people at like a cultural gathering playing their instruments kind of thing was what I was
Yeah,
trying to hear
that's
the
something
most.
cool about looking outside of North America and like I guess into Middle Eastern and Asian cultures. There's instruments that nobody ever picks up here
Yeah,
that they play over there, and it's kind of nice for me as like a bedroom producer going through like packs of samples and crap. Like you'll come across these sounds,
You're
but
like, oh,
No,
yeah,
what,
you're like,
what
what is
synthesizer is
this?
this?
Yeah. Yeah, and then I'm watching YouTube videos of like people playing an instrument that I've never heard of in my life, and
yeah.
you look at like the build quality and the engineering that went into this instrument. It's just so weird how not only the music can be drastically different in an area, but the things producing the music are also drastically different.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, it's so cool.
yeah,
All that
man.
Stuff,
So how long were you over there?
so October I was a month, and then March I was a little bit over a month,
Yeah.
more or less. So I've just done that the 2 times.
And
so
are you able to like sustain yourself with the cash you pull in just from show to show?
In
Or
China?
yeah.
In China, the first tour, I more or less came out even.
Hmm.
I didn't lose any money. I might have actually come out a bit on top, but
Mhm.
that's because I was solo. When I had the band, it was like, I actually haven't checked the final Excel sheet of money, but it was like,
I'm glad you keep
I-
an Excel sheet.
well, I work with a management label out there too.
Okay,
So it
cool.
helps. Yeah, because it's just like a whole different ball game
Yeah,
out there.
for sure,
It
sure.
would be hard for me
I
to
guess
do
you
it.
get accustomed to how things roll out here, and it's going to be totally different.
How
Yeah.
does something
there.
like that happen? Like you getting in contact with a label on the other side of the world.
Yeah, well, the specific label I was working with, I met the owner at Canadian Music Week. You guys know,
Yep.
yeah, Canadian Music Week about maybe like 4 years ago when I first started doing this solo stuff, and he was in town, so I messaged him. I knew someone else who'd work with him for a short little China tour, so I just kind of hit him up like, hey, do you want to just have a coffee and chat, because I'm interested in eventually going to China to play music. So just kind of built a relationship from that. I think he distributed my first album there just digitally first for the first kind of few years, and then I put out my latest album Coast, and then he released it, and then the deal was to just do a tour to push it too.
Cool.
So yeah,
We were just listening to Coast before you showed up, and we couldn't help but notice immediately that you seem to take huge inspiration from Anthony Kiedis.
yeah, especially that song.
Yeah?
Coast.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
for
yeah.
sure. I love
Yeah.
the Chili Peppers, and I love John Frusciante and Anthony
Hell
Kiedis.
yeah,
They're two
man.
like
Yeah,
and
I'm
Flea, like, all of
such a
them.
nerd
Yeah,
for
all
the
of
Red
them.
Hot Chili Peppers.
yeah,
Like,
yeah, yeah,
For a long time, I guess still to this day, they're one of my favorite bands of all time.
yeah.
How do you both feel about them now with like the, even though
I
they
don't
only
love
have
it.
one member changed, it's
Oh, the new
still
Josh. Was it
yeah,
Josh Klinghoffer?
Yeah, Josh Klinghoffer. Ever
Yeah.
since John Frusciante left, and
I don't love
I don't
it,
know
to
what
be
he's done.
honest. I don't
Yeah.
I don't hate it. It's not that it's bad music. It's just missing like these
Yeah.
iconic
yeah, they were a really
Chili
Yeah.
Peppers sound for
well-formed
me.
equation in a simple,
Yeah,
with
yeah.
very
Yeah,
simple
yeah.
pieces.
I mean, I guess they're growing to
Ye-
all together, or even just
yeah.
Well, even from the first project they released with him to the second one, I can't recall the names of them.
with the new guitars.
Yeah,
okay.
the first one he seemed to be a lot more laid back into the track, really letting Flea just kind
Yeah.
of shine on the
Yeah.
bass. And then the newest record, it seems like he's taking some bigger liberties and stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So maybe the next project they'll be like, okay, like we're super tight, like we understand the dynamic of the group now.
Yeah.
Because I mean, even when they started playing with John Frusciante, he sort of stole the style of their original guitarist who passed away
Yeah.
because
yeah.
he was like he was self-proclaimed super fan,
Yeah.
and it was like a very seamless transition.
Yeah, that's true.
And then Dave Navarro, when he came on to do One Hot Minute with them, it was just playing like some traditional funk and stuff, which is pretty in line with what they do.
Yeah.
And then this new guitarist seems to be doing something like very different. So maybe it's just going to take that period of time
Yeah.
for everybody else.
I
to
mean, the
catch up.
funny thing about Josh Klinghoffer though is that he's like John Frusciante's protege, kind of.
Yeah.
And during Stadium Arcadium tours, he was the guy behind the curtain playing the secondary guitar.
Oh,
sometimes.
okay.
So I think he has the influence, but yeah, maybe just writing wise, they just approach it
Yeah.
differently too.
Well, I guess for me, it's just John Frusciante would take like these huge like forefront riffs and just like blast them
Yeah.
out, right?
yeah,
It's like really, really iconic in my head when I
Yeah.
think about it. Like nobody else really kind of recreates that sound. So maybe it's just a really big pair of shoes to fill.
yeah. No,
It
I mean,
is.
oh, for sure, definitely.
It is.
Yeah,
They're just a really, I don't know. I just always felt like John Frusciante, I don't want to say like made essential part of their sound, but when he made his solo album, I think it was called like the Empyrean,
the Imperium. Yeah,
the Imperium or Empyrean or whatever. When I heard that, I was like, oh man, there's so many like of those
Right.
Stadium Arcadium elements
yeah.
of that like just evolved, like finely tuned, Chili
Yeah.
Peppers
Yeah,
sound.
to me,
And then you just saw
his
like, that
guitar
album
is
was just
as
a little bit of
as
it.
recognizable as Anthony's voice is, Like
Yeah.
I feel like I could hear a John riff anywhere and you'd just be able to pick it out. Right
yeah,
away,
that's true.
be
Yeah,
it
he's
the tones
a great
or-
riff writer for
Yeah.
sure. Like he writes really iconic stuff. Actually, it's funny you mentioned the Imperium because at The Beat Goes On, where I was just playing, they had that record for sale for $130.
What?
Yeah,
130.
I think because apparently, I
limited
guess.
press.
Well, it said it was a 2012 reissue, so I guess they stopped making it, and then they did one more manufacturing, and then that's
What?
it. So now I don't think there's any more of that Imperium album.
Are you
Frusciante.
That's
you a vinyl
ridiculous.
head? You collect or anything?
I don't collect, but I do like it. It's just because I tour so much, so I don't actually
Yeah.
have a place anymore.
Sure.
So I don't have anywhere to keep
right.
records, but I do enjoy.
Yeah,
listening to
I'm kind of the
records.
same. Well, not that I tour all over, but I love the idea of vinyls, but I
Yeah.
just do I have the space to have a collection? Not really.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
But that being said, I do have a friend who started collecting a ton of vinyl,
Yeah.
and he's experiencing just that. Really limited quantities of certain records are
Yeah.
making it hard for him to get his favorite albums because people are asking $200, $300, $400 for
Yeah.
some presses. Like I think he was looking for a couple Tool records, and he thought like, yeah, Tool's a huge band, like they're gonna have a ton of presses out. But some of their earlier work, there's not
it's really
much
hard to find.
available.
Yeah. I mean, I guess that's the whole hunt
Yeah,
that vinyl lovers love doing,
I
right?
guess.
Like looking
Yeah.
for records.
And it's cool that that's still the same way it's always been.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like with
Yeah,
CDs,
true.
that was kind of like the last form of it, and then
Yeah.
vinyls just kind of came
I
back,
hate
like
CDs,
that sense of
man.
discovery,
There's
because
nothing
you don't.
romantic
Yeah.
about a CD.
Well, yeah, yeah.
I don't know. I remember when I was younger, I would buy a CD and go home, and it's like it would be like watching a movie. But listen, you open a CD, you read the.
Oh yeah, don't get me
Yeah.
wrong.
Yeah.
There are elements to the CD that I do enjoy, but I think as I got older, there was like an element that was lost where like
Right.
you'd open a CD case and like the front plastic housing might break off,
Yeah.
or it gets
yeah.
like shattered because something falls on it. It's just like it's so delicate and cheap.
It is. Yeah. It is.
Or
very
or when that totally went out the window with CD books. Remember when
Yeah,
you just
the
had like a
binder.
booklet
Oh, yeah,
of
the
CDs,
booklet. Oh, yeah,
and
yeah.
you would just flip through the pages of like 4 CDs
Yeah.
per page.
You know what's funny about that? I actually ran into somebody who still has like quite a few of their CD binders just laying around, and the discs are rotting. Did you know?
Oh, really?
Yeah,
I didn't
CDs.
know they rotted.
Yeah, they rot.
What? Like so?
So
how
like
did
the layer of metal that they write onto, that's
Yeah.
underneath like the plastic layer,
Yeah.
it corrodes like pretty easily, I guess, and it
Oh.
just ruins the CD. So
Crazy.
there's all these great CD mixtapes that are going to be lost to time. Sure.
Maybe that's why they phased them out. They just realized they're like, oh wait, these
There's
are
a
about to
shelf
expire in
like
like
that.
5 years.
That's why they brought vinyl back somehow.
Yeah.
They knew
Yeah,
it was
yeah.
happening. So.
Yeah. Oh shit! I think
Let's-
we got really far off track here. Where was the initial question?
I don't know. I mean, I guess we were talking about China.
Oh yeah,
At, like,
right,
the
right,
very,
right.
at the
Yeah,
very
yeah.
start. But I
Um,
don't know what.
That's all right.
Something about like
Yeah,
booking
what?
tours and stuff like that.
Oh,
Oh.
yeah, that's right. Using.
Yeah. So I guess to go back to that, I had the label helping me organize and
Right,
book
right.
the shows, and yeah. What else? Had the translator kind of with me on both tours, and it's really helpful to have.
So would you go back in a heartbeat?
I would, yeah, for sure.
What were like some of the more interesting experiences you had there, aside from like you playing? your
Yeah.
shows?
Well,
Like
I
what
mean-
stood out? Was there any culture shock
there was
At a-
some. I mean,
instance?
I'm trying to think of stuff that happened. Well, one funny thing that in some of the provinces, they don't ground their electricity. Like that doesn't
Oh.
exist.
Oh, I've heard. Okay,
So
I'll
everything's
follow
just
this up with
buzzing?
an anecdote.
Well, it was buzzing, but like I got electrocuted at every single show, like constantly. It wasn't like sometimes it would be really intense, but more times than not, like I just had to get used to it. Like if I sing and I touch the mic, I would get electrocuted. My lips
Yeah.
would get electrocuted. And
It's funny that you bring this up. Like maybe 3 weeks ago. Do you guys know the band USS from Toronto?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Alan Cross was interviewing them, and they were talking about their first tour, and I think they went through some region in China,
Yeah.
and they were saying the same thing. They don't ground
Yeah.
like any of their outlets, so they blew the power at like a ton of different shows where
yeah,
they
that's very
just
possible. Yeah.
they just blew the breaker on everything, and something exactly like that. They or the lead singer kept getting electrocuted on his
Yeah.
mouth because he kept leaning in too close to the mic.
Yeah.
And I guess the final straw that broke the camel's back, they blew out power to a whole entire village, because I guess they
Really?
used to do this thing where they would like mix like margaritas with a blender like on stage, and they would like hand them out to the audience. And they turned on the blender like mid show, and it was too much amperage for
Blenders
the village
break
to
everything. It's like you could power a whole stadium, and then
so
you like turn
true.
on a blender
It's
the whole
so
thing. Yeah, no, they don't. Yeah, a lot of the provinces they don't. Grounding doesn't exist at all. They have 3 prongs,
right.
but the
The third
bottom one
prong
does
goes
nothing.
nowhere.
Yeah.
Just there, just
It's
because.
just so you can plug your North
I
American
guess so.
utilities. in.
Yeah. So we get electrocuted pretty much all the time. We had to I started wrapping my bandanas like around the mic and stuff, just so because I do like touching the mic when I sing. Like my lips,
Sure,
I'm
yeah.
used to that. So it was really hard for me to kind of avoid doing it. So
How bad's the shock? Like just enough to startle you, or is your like neck flying back?
no, it's not that crazy. At one place I think the second time it ever happened, it was like pretty serious. Where like if I put my hand, like if you put your hand on it, it was usually for me if I was touching my guitar, or my guitar was
Oh,
on
you're
me.
completing a loop.
Yeah, and then I
Yeah.
put my hand on the mic to test it. You could feel kind of like the surge kind of going into your hand.
Okay.
Not enough to like
Right.
It's like a small
shock your
sting.
hand. Yeah. But then with the mouth, sometimes it's like it hits you pretty hard,
Yeah.
and
yeah,
even
yeah.
shocks like your teeth. If I like accidentally, like if I'm singing and move, I hit my teeth on or something, like it'll shock your kind of bones. It was pretty wild, and that was
Is it easy to recover on stage from that?
yeah,
Or do you,
yeah. Like I said,
You
it's
just
not
get
so
traumatized.
crazy.
You're just kind of like.
I feel like I would
singing
just
and then you're
stop for a
kinda
second.
yeah,
I feel like I would
back.
just stop playing and stop singing for a second. Like, what? Oh yeah, I'm on stage. Okay, I gotta keep going.
No, I got used to it pretty quick. You kind of you power through. I felt like it made me a better performer because I was like I can
It
handle.
gave you superpowers. the
Yeah, it's
electricity.
just like this added difficulty
Yeah.
level.
Oh, I've heard that. I forget who it was, but somebody was telling a story that there's these like major labels when they're building these young stars. They like make
Building.
yeah,
They're
well,
like
yeah,
in a
they
factory.
there's this one producer or A&R guy that makes the artist like play outside in the heat with like tons of mosquitoes around, and
Okay.
like they have to just play through and not
Oh
stop.
my god.
It's like a part of like
Jeez.
training them to prepare for like outdoor shows.
These are like some old traditional like.
It's like a kung fu movie.
Yeah.
but then like but it's funny, but it kind of like when I play outdoor shows or festivals, like I played this festival in Australia once, in Northern Australia, where it's like 45 degrees like constantly, and I was literally playing with the sun setting directly on me for
Right.
like two 45-minute sets,
Jeez.
and I was just like dying. Like
Yeah.
I was sweating, and I was like I just felt like I was gonna have a heat stroke, but
Sure.
like you just kind of keep playing.
Right,
So as
right.
crazy as it is, it kind of does happen when you tour a lot, because you get into these weird situations. Mosquitoes for sure, like
Mhm.
outdoors. I feel like I always get bit if I'm playing outdoors, especially in Canada.
Oh
in
yeah,
like
it's a
northern
mess out here.
Yeah. So yeah, it's funny, but it's kind of like you do actually kind of get used to all the elements that kind of
It's
could
weird
prevent
that
you.
nobody, well, other than this A&R, it prepares musicians for these odd things that are gonna.
Yeah,
occur.
and that's why it was funny when I heard this guy doing it to like these, when they're creating these superstar
Mhm.
singers or whatever they are, I guess. Pop
So-
stars.
So I was reading back in 2017, you played over 100 shows.
Yeah. Oh, that was just in Australia too.
What?
There's like,
How do you do that?
Yeah.
well, that was.
Where's the power coming from?
I mean, I guess
The mics?
need to survive.
Electrocuting?
I mean, I guess that like part of it is needing to make money to survive. So I kind of
Sure. Yeah, that's true.
that keeps me going. But I don't know. I mean, Australia is a really fun place to tour, right?
Mhm.
It's like warm weather. It feels like you're
Yeah.
on vacation,
Yeah.
and you get to play music and make money.
Sounds
and-
great.
Yeah.
So are you with a label there as well?
No,
like
I'm
how does
not.
that?
No, I
How
do.
does getting out there work, especially on a doing 100 shows in a year?
Yeah, I just book everything myself. So I had a manager at that point who was helping me with some stuff, like a Canadian
Okay.
one. Not anymore, but so we would do it together. But I essentially do all the booking for myself. The only place that I have label help is in China.
Okay.
And so everywhere else I've toured, I've done pretty much on my own.
You just reached out to.
Yeah,
most of them?
I just research, like, I mean, I love traveling, so music was kind of just a way for me to travel more. So I just kind of, when I first went to Australia, I just looked on the map and I was like, okay, I want to start here. I'm going to land in Melbourne and I want to go all the way up to the top. So I just kind of like looked up where there's bars and music.
You just said, "Hey, can I play here on
Yeah.
this day?" And they're like, "Yeah." And you just coordinated, like, "Yeah,
Yeah,
it's just-
yeah.
And thus is how you book a tour.
Yeah, exactly. It's like there's, I guess there's a lot of, finer details of constantly emailing and stuff, but it's pretty
Yeah.
simple. Like I feel people think it's a lot more challenging than it
Yeah.
actually is.
I
But
feel like people are just afraid to reach out, to be honest. I mean,
Yeah.
it's just a
Yeah.
conversation. I think I heard, I was watching like a Hot Ones like spin-off thing yesterday where they were talking to Seth Rogen, and
Okay.
they were like, oh, where do you get all your dope shoes from? And he was like, I just emailed Kanye West and asked for like a couple like limited edition sneakers, and he just sent them over.
Seth Rogen did
Yeah.
that? Oh.
So I know it's a pretty extravagant
Yeah,
example
I don't think we
of
can all
that.
do that. I would love to.
But I truly do feel like people are just scared to reach out.
sure,
Like,
for sure.
we even see it with this show. Like we messaged Il Scarlet like a couple of weeks ago, just kind of like a one-off shot in the dark, and
Yeah.
we're like, hey, you guys want to come to a show, because they're playing at Maxwell's, a local venue here in a couple months, and they're like, yeah,
cool,
okay,
so
message us closer to the date, we might come around. And we're like, wait, you're not supposed to say yes to this.
No, you're like, shit, now I gotta go.
Yeah.
No, it's true. People, it's I guess like you said, people are just maybe afraid of the rejection. Or
for sure.
But
do you get rejected at all?
Oh yeah, of course, all the time.
Yeah.
It's like in this industry, I get rejected as much as I get accepted.
Yeah, that's
right?
True.
You
that's
kind
true.
of, it's the reality. Not everyone's gonna like you.
Yeah, right.
Especially your art. It's subjective, right?
Yeah, of course.
But yeah, I mean, like you said, just messaging people like Il Scarlet. I mean, they're just people like you and I, right?
Yeah,
like, they're not
exactly.
At the end of the day, they're nothing. Like, we're all special in our own way, but I mean, like, they're not.
I heard it put interestingly by Alexis on Fire a couple weeks ago. This was another Alan Cross interview. Okay. Love listening to that dude. But they were basically like, it was weird once we started seeing success, because we just still saw ourselves as like idiot teenagers, like playing stupid little bars.
Right.
But it was just in a bigger setting. Like I guess it's strange for the artist to go like, oh yeah, like we're world famous now. They just see themselves.
This is it, guys.
They don't see themselves like we see them, right?
Right.
They're just regular.
Yeah, I mean, they still have to eat and shower.
So how did this whole tour across the planet and travel all the time, like where did this start? Like, did you just come out of high school and you're like, this is what I'm doing? Like,
no. I mean, I did what did I do during high school or after high school? I started doing like backpacking trips, like backpacked in Europe, and then went to Africa to backpack and ended up like doing volunteer work for like a few months there. And cool. I just loved traveling. Like, so that passion for traveling I had since I was a teenager, and I was just kind of trying to find a way, I guess, to enable me to keep traveling. So I figured music was a good way to do it. I didn't really start music because I went to university at McMaster, and I was just doing like whatever, communications and drinking and drinking
whatever's
beer.
Right.
Taking the party diploma. And then after university I traveled some more, and then I finally was like, okay, maybe I'll like try to like push music a bit and actually work on it. And
the travel must be good for you, because you look really healthy.
Well, I've had the month to kind of, I mean, you get used to it because it can actually take a pretty big toll.
Sure, yeah.
So I try my best to, I guess, stay healthy. I don't drink as much on tour anymore.
It's probably a good thing.
Yeah, for sure.
I used to play in a band called the Vibonics. It was like this hip hop band from Toronto, and we toured a lot. And with them, I was younger, and we would just like, we'd go on tour for like 2 months and just drink every single night, every show. And
I feel like it's an easy way to kill a band.
Oh yeah. Well, yeah, I don't. It's not a band anymore. But no, it's just after that 2 months, I would get back to my place in Toronto, and just like, you could just feel like how it takes a toll on your body, right? All the drinking.
You can hear the toxins coming out.
Yeah.
What's the hardest thing about like adjusting when you come home from a super long tour?
I think it's like what I would call the post-tour blues, because it's kind of sad when you're back home. Like it's comfortable, I guess. You have that comfortability, but then when you're just, I guess, you're like not going to a show, you're not playing music, then you're like off this high of kind of being like this touring musician, right? It's like so fun to do. That's it, and you're
dream,
like,
right?
Exactly, yeah, like, oh, I'm actually doing it.
And when you're home, you forget about all the bullshit.
yeah, you get back, and then, you know, if you don't have stuff going on and you're kind of just home for a week or two, you're kind of like, oh, you get a bit down, right?
You're like, oh, I'm not doing anything. Or let's say you're trying to meet up with people and everyone's busy. You're like,
So
damn, like,
it's like going on. It's like coming back from vacation or something, right? You're just like set back into reality.
You went from the dream to just the humdrum, I guess.
Yeah.
So where do you call home? I guess.
Well, I mean, traveling. To be honest, these days I don't really know. I guess I stay in Mississauga because I have family there, so it's good because I can visit them when I'm back, and I stay there. But I don't know. I mean, I still feel like I'm trying to find out where my home is. That's
Right.
like kind of part of my journey of traveling and self-discovery. Is
there any places you feel
That
like
could
you've
be?
connected? Yeah.
Come close.
Yeah, I mean, I think Australia is getting pretty close. Like every time I go there, I'm a huge ocean person, so I love being by the ocean.
Yeah, we
and-
were we were checking out some of your music videos, and we're like, man,
This guy's having a blast.
go-
I was
I
like,
wanna go.
jeez. Yeah, I just literally said, I was like, oh, look at him go. I was like, this is awesome. I was like,
yeah, I think I said, I don't know if I've ever been this happy in my life.
but you made that happen. So thank you.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, yeah, Australia would be getting close because I really dig it there, and it's good. It's good weather, and I mean, music scene is cool. I think I'm always gonna try to tour as much as I can, at least for now, while I can do it.
Yeah.
But like as for kind of like a home basis right now, I'm not too sure yet. So maybe if I chat with you guys in like another 2 years, I'll
Sure,
have,
please
like, an
do
answer
it.
or
If you ever
another
come back
like
around,
a different
I'm-
accent or something. G'day, mate. They're like, alright. Guess you didn't choose Canada.
Tennyson Dundee.
So when you're saying there's like a good music scene in Australia, what to you defines a good music scene?
Good question. Well, I mean, there's lots of similar to Canada, like there's lots of Australian bands and artists.
Yeah.
So going around doing the indie stuff, and the community seems pretty good. Like every Aussie musician or band I've met has been very helpful, I guess, right? Like just not like necessarily seeing as competition, but
Yeah.
kind of trying to be friend or build a big community of it.
It's awesome.
So that's really good. I mean, I've gone into festivals because like somebody told the booker that like
That's
you should
amazing.
book this person, like
Cool.
so like I think I've been really lucky with the people I've met and where I've gone to play, and yeah, lots of cool music in Australia is interesting too, because it's got, at least from some of it that I've heard, it's got this kind of it's kind of lighthearted
Mm-hmm.
because life there is so chill and
Right.
and easygoing. So it's reflected in the music, in their creation of music, but
Mhm.
not necessarily in lyrics. Sometimes their lyrics can still be maybe like somber or intense or sad or serious, but
But it's got the tone.
but
that
the
it's,
feel
yeah.
for it, right? Like you guys listen to Tash Sultana? Have you heard
No.
of Tash Sultana?
I don't think so.
She's like huge now all over the world, but she's a one person band. She does like looping and drum beats.
Oh, cool.
Oh, cool.
I think she's playing at like the whatever the ACC is
ACC,
now in Toronto soon.
Yeah, I
But-
can't keep up with all the
Yeah, whatever the name.
multinationals taking over it.
But she's like she's kind of a good example of that, because her music is very like people can still dance to it, and it's like got a bit of a chill groove, but
Cool.
she does sing a little bit more about, serious things.
Right. You ever listened to Reggie Watts before?
Yeah. He's hilarious.
It sounds similar to that. Yeah, Reggie's always rocking loop machines. and
Yeah.
I know he mostly is like beatboxing, but
Yeah.
yeah, he's bringing all those same elements. Yeah,
Yeah,
he's a
yeah.
really funny guy.
Yeah.
Sorry to kind of interrupt that.
Oh no, Reggie Watts is amazing. I love.
Yeah.
So I think the music scene in Australia is cool, from at least from my standpoint. I feel like everyone always has a different view if they're from the country.
Definitely. And it's like you were even saying, like how the vibe, I guess, of how like a city, province, country like
Mhm.
works will reflect on like the music scene and like
Yeah,
the
yeah.
musicians and whatever kind of genre is prominent in like the local scene.
Right.
You know what I mean?
yeah.
Like I can imagine here is a lot different than, some cities in Australia or
Yeah.
even like Toronto or BC or
Yeah.
you know, I don't know, New York.
I feel like it's almost tough to tell because I'm pretty sure part of my brain imposes what I want that music to sound like when I listen to it. So there's a bunch of California like punk bands that I listen to, and inherently in my mind I apply this like sunshiny element to it
Oh, just because.
But I don't know if it's actually there. I don't know.
Right.
It's a strange little mind loop to get into.
Yeah, especially with like punk music, when you hear like, oh yeah, there's like, you know, it's even with like hip hop, you know, like East Coast, West Coast.
Yeah.
You think that there's like gonna be this whole. You kind of assume that there's gonna be this
A
whole
clear
like,
line of difference between the two. Yeah.
But I feel like now more than ever, we're experiencing a true blend.
Yeah, I
like,
definitely think so.
Of like different, like even like hemispheres of the world. Like even now, I'm starting to notice, in some mainstream music, they're using like samples with instruments that are like using like microtonal like notes. And I'm like, well, that's totally like that's an Eastern thing.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's not really used here. You know, we got the 12 notes and that's pretty much it. But it's like when you hear that, you're like, oh, like why does it sound kind of like off? But then when you like, I don't know, I forget which instrument it was. It's this really interesting like looking piano thing, but it's got with along with the white keys and the black keys, it's got some other keys like in the middle, and those are like
slidey keys.
No, they're like so it's like between like a
real technical term there. The
slidey
so
between
keys.
Like between like an A and an A sharp, there'd be like another.
Okay, sure.
Like another note.
Does it look like a piano? Like was it ivory piano or just like
no? It looks
random?
It looks like a MIDI keyboard or something,
okay,
but then it's got some like weird like ones in the middle that you can like tap on. And I remember like listening to some hip hop song and it had a sample. And then I looked up what instrument it was, and when it was that, I was like, "Oh, that's cool! Like it's intentionally like that because it's in between like two notes that I'm like used to hearing." And then I don't know, I just thought it was cool that like now we're, you know, 10 years ago I wouldn't have heard much of that in any mainstream music, but yeah, now it's cool to hear some elements.
Yeah,
of
it
that.
is. I guess it's good that they're doing that too, because I mean, music. I mean, there's always new and good music happening, but it is kind of getting very recycled. I feel like sometimes, like certain Western pop music, especially the commercial radio stuff.
Right? Definitely,
it's tough too because it's so easy to just fall into like a bottomless pit of music that all sounds sameish, right?
Yeah,
I feel like it's more difficult to kind of dig through the trash and find the stuff that's really unique and original.
Yeah.
So what's considered like radio music, you know, over on the other side of the world, since, you know, here it is kind of using a lot of recent elements and not really digging too far back.
Yeah.
When you hear like you know, Eastern on the eastern side of the world, when you hear the radio, like what is
well, in China, I mean, China's funny because their pop music is like it's just like super pop. Have you ever heard like canto pop or like K-pop?
Oh yeah.
It's like that pretty much, right? It's like pop
so
stars.
manufactured.
So that is like the mainstream.
That would be considered the China mainstream, like those.
Interesting.
And in China they don't.
What
really
do you think
have,
about K-pop?
I mean, some of it's kind of cool.
I find it like insanely infectious and catchy. Like
it is.
Even like I go
catchy.
in and I'm like, I don't want to like this, but I can't help it.
Yeah.
That's a masterful engineer went in and just perfected the sound.
Yeah. And there's the China pop stuff is similar too.
Okay, yeah.
And a lot of Korean bands will go to China to do shows because they don't have like I was saying, they're just either like pop stars or like not like people playing as hobby players are fun. Like they don't have it here where we have like there's no middle
ground.
Yeah, like we're in Canada, we've got like tons of indie bands who are doing music full time, making a living and putting out cool music, and we can still find out about them and see them at a show that's like a moderate, you know, like a moderate size.
Why do you think that is?
I mean, I just think in China they didn't know that was even really an option to like be in indie music. Like when I remember I was giving this workshop once, like a cultural exchange workshop during my first tour, and they were just asking me, like they were just so in shock about the fact that I just travel around and play music and make a living, and just that's like what I do, because it's so not, but I'm not like a super pop star, right? Like it's like they're still sitting there talking.
They're like, how do you do that? That doesn't make sense.
Yeah, I feel like part of that might just be from upbringing as well. Like their parents probably go like, oh, you got to go to school, you got to hold down a job. If you're not holding down a job, you're you ain't shit.
Exactly. And no one's really doing it, right? I mean, no one else. Like in China now, the indie scene is starting to get popular. It's funny because China is like pretty much now. I mean, it's been happening for the past 10 years, but it's like what happened here a long time ago. It's starting to happen there.
Yeah, sure.
So that's kind of what the reason I actually really like it is, like, you're going there and you're a part of this movement that you pretty much can't get anywhere else in the world now.
Yeah, I feel like it must
right?
be so dynamic that you must almost feel like you can just see it right in front of your eyes happening.
Yeah, for sure.
I mean, I'm pretty separated from that whole culture over here, but there are several bands and artists that I listen to over there, and I've watched them just go from like you had said, like hobby artists, like somebody who just like goes and does a show every other week at like an open mic at a tiny little bar, to oddly enough gaining massive success over here when they're still not really being recognized in their home country, just because like the sound is so unique and dynamic, but it holds on to things that we understand and that we've listened to for so long. It's an interesting little thing that's happening.
Yeah, that's very cool.
So through all your touring and stuff, when do you find time to record, and what's that process like?
Well, usually the last record I did was just in between tours. So I think I had just finished, I guess, I don't even know. I think I was in Holland. I did like a short tour there, and then I came back and then I recorded just in like 2-3 months. So I mean, the process, I guess, usually I try to write when I'm on the road, but I find it a bit hard for me personally.
Right.
Just because I'm always moving, and I feel like I need to sit down and lock myself.
Sink your teeth
into
into
like
the
a
work.
zone or something.
And
Interesting. So considering that, you haven't really labeled anywhere as like home yet, but considering that you have to get yourself into like a zone, it's like
I still need a space.
Yeah, you still need a space, which is
sure.
Interesting. So like even that, it's like you have to make somewhere almost like home.
True, that's true.
For like, just this little moment of time. Like I don't know how long does it take you to cook up like an album or something like that?
I mean, it's kind of all. I feel like there's no formula, no set time.
Yeah.
Like sometimes it takes me like a week to even just write one song. Sometimes I write a song in like an hour.
Yeah,
and it's
exactly.
like, so it's kind of that weird divine intervention kind of thing,
so
where
no
just
creating
Isn't
on the
divine
road?
intervention incredibly annoying?
Yeah.
When
worst.
one morning you wake up and you just feel like you're really tethered to an idea, and it just kind of drags you through the dirt, and
It's like
you get
winning-
a ton of, like, it feels like months worth of work done in just a few hours, and then the next day you try to hit it and it's just nothing.
Yeah,
that's
exactly.
the worst.
It's like winning the lottery, but they don't tell you that they don't tell you that you're gonna lose the money the day after. They don't tell you. They're like, oh, you win all this money. You're like, okay, cool. And then you're like thinking the whole day, you're like, oh, what am I gonna do with this? And then the next day you're just like, where'd all this money go? Like, we never gave you any money. And it's like,
that never
it's like
happened.
what?
Oh,
and it's
man.
like what? No, it's like yesterday. Like it was all there. Like with a celebration. Like. And
I
it's like,
celebrated.
No. Yeah. It's like, no.
That's hilarious.
So you don't write you don't even write lyrics on the road or anything.
I do.
Like that?
I do. Like,
Yeah?
so I write.
I feel like that would be super inspiring.
I'll do as much as I can, and I'll record little voice memos of ideas. So I get a lot of ideas on the road, like little verses or
little
topics,
melodies or
courses.
something
Yeah.
like that. Cool.
So, but then I need to just sit somewhere down and like put it all together and kind of craft it into a song. So I'm actually kind of in that process a bit right now. So I haven't been doing that many shows because I'll be hoping to record a new record like maybe September, October or something. So since I've been back, I've been trying to kind of get back and get in a groove of writing and everything.
Do you feel like you're in a really interesting place as a music writer, or as a songwriter, I should say, taking everything that you hear from traveling internationally, and you can kind of bring it back and work with all these different sounds? Like, are you incorporating elements from elsewhere into your music?
That's the goal. Like, I would really like to. It's just seeing how that can all come together, and if it can come together.
Right.
But yeah, that's definitely one of the big things I love about having been able to travel the past few years is to do that. And I think I'm very fortunate to have had those opportunities. So I want to kind of share it with everyone too. So everyone can kind of hear like you said, like some instruments from a different culture or
Sure.
something like
Yeah.
that. I mean, even people who've heard my old record versus my new record, Coast.
Super different.
Yeah, and even someone's just like, it kind of sounds like you were in Australia, like on like just on a
Yeah,
beach.
yeah.
Or like,
Oh yeah. for
That's
sure.
so cool though.
yeah,
That you
yeah.
can capture that vibe.
Yeah, because I it was interesting. So you had sent us a message, and I'm kind of going through your Instagram, seeing what you're about, seeing what kind of little juicy tidbits we can talk about.
Yeah.
And I'm like, wow, like definitely getting a certain kind of like vibe off of the images that I'm seeing. And I'm like, okay, I got to go listen to his music now. And I put on one of your first records that's available
Yeah.
on streaming platforms, and I'm like, whoa, this is really different. And it was like certain, like almost melancholic on certain
Yeah.
elements of the music.
Right.
And I'm like, I wasn't expecting this. And then as I like went through the songs, it was like getting more upbeat and
Yeah.
more
Right, yeah, yeah.
sunshiny. And
This guy started to love his life a little bit.
then
Yeah, you start off hating yourself and then you move to that.
you
get
said it,
happy.
not me. So with our musical guests, we like to do this little interesting game. I guess we'll call it a game.
Okay.
Where we'll span your musical listening habits from a very early memory to kind of where you're at right now. So the
Okay.
first one will be, let's just say the first musical piece that really popped out to you and that has kind of stuck with you. The second one will be an artist or a sound that you heard that really changed music for you.
Okay.
And then the third one's just what you're listening to now and what you're into.
So tough. It's good. I like it. It's not, I think for me, the first one was something that
First one, so for me, I'll give you an example.
Okay.
For me, and I hate saying this on mic, but I was
Mine's
probably
worse.
6 or 7 years old, and I remember listening to like Aaron Carter on on like a crappy little.
Who is that? That's
He's Nick Carter, like
the Backstreet
yes,
Boys.
the Backstreet
brother.
Boys' little brother.
Okay.
So basically, the Backstreet Boys made it, and then Nick Carter from the Backstreet Boys just tossed his brother a bunch of money when he was like 8 or 9, and he said, "Go make a super engineered record that's gonna make you a ton of money because it's just perfect pop." and I don't know if I asked for the cassette or if it was just given to me, but I loved the hell out of it.
So wait, that was significant because you just
It's just
It
like
just
the
made you
first
love
memory
music,
that I
or-
have about like
Yeah.
really like listening to a whole project like front to back
Yeah.
and like just feeling it. Because before that, I like would listen to music, but nothing really
Oh,
stuck with
okay.
me.
Yeah,
For
same
some
here.
reason, this
Yeah.
one thing stuck with me.
okay.
I guess
me,
Ian can give his example
Yeah.
too.
It was Shakira. I was on a camping trip with my parents, and it was the only CD in the car. And I think there was like a CD Walkman, and I was just like, all right, well,
Just listen to
yeah, I'll just listen to it. And it was the only CD, and I listened to it front to back like 15 times, just the whole trip there and back. And I still know, like every time I hear songs on the radio, I just know them. Never listen to that album ever again after. But yeah, that just stuck with me. I don't know. And I didn't even like it. It just is like my first musical memory of like.
Yeah, exactly.
It's a little
It doesn't have to be
poignant, but-
Right.
like
it sounds like the question is more like your first embarrassing musical.
for us it's embarrassing, but we've had
No.
guests who are like they come in and they're like listening to like really contemporary pieces and we're like, oh, we're idiots.
Like,
Well,
I
I've
remember
got-
listening to
I'll
like
give-
to Zeppelin. I was like, damn.
Yeah, man.
Well, I've got two that I could say. One that's embarrassing, and I guess one that's maybe less embarrassing, depending on who you are. But one of my sister used to influence me a lot with the music I'd listen to. So she was all into like Marilyn Manson and Rob Zombie and all these like crazy dark shit.
Yeah.
Because she was, like an angsty goth teenager, and I was just like the little brother.
Yeah,
kinda.
yeah.
But yeah, I remember. I think it was which record was it? It was one of the Rob Zombie records. That it was a cassette, and I just listened. Like that was one of like the first things I kind of listened to. That kind of made me go like, oh, I didn't know music could go like this, could be in this kind of direction.
okay.
Sure.
And then my embarrassing one that I also really love listening to was S Club 7.
Yes.
Club.
There's something about those pop songs, and I had the CD, and I listened to it all the time.
Yeah, I had
It
an
was
S
just
Club 7 CD as well.
Yeah.
I think that
Yeah.
was the logical progression from Aaron Carter to S Club.
Yeah.
I don't know. I was on a really dark path.
Yeah, this really shows some angst.
Yeah, I'm glad I course corrected somewhere along the line.
I mean, it was. I don't even know what it was. It was just good to listen to. Like,
It's
it just
catchy.
felt-
It makes the dopamine start flowing in your brain.
yeah,
Like,
yeah.
Something about S Club, it was just like, it just seemed like it was always a party. It was an S Club
Yeah, yeah.
party.
I think it was probably because
how
of
many
the
people
show
were in
too.
that group?
I think
I think
7.
there is. Was
Wasn't
that
it
actually
S-
7? Yeah, I guess
I
that's.
I
what
feel
it's
like in
called,
the
7.
show
Yeah,
there
yeah,
was like 100 people.
Yeah.
Yeah, the show I think also made me really like it too. Cause
Yeah.
you just was like, oh, I wish I had their life.
Wait, there was a
for
show?
sure. Yes.
Yeah, I think they
Oh.
got famous because of the show.
Yeah, I
like
think
it
you're right.
released all kind of at the same time.
What
but
was the show like?
It's like a reality show following them.
Yeah, it was kind of like the
being-
real world or
Yeah.
something like that.
Them being musicians in LA. I think they'd like moved. There, this group of English kids. Career just launched and took off, and then they
Oh, okay.
in LA, like just living and performing and being these big rock stars. These pop stars.
Interesting.
Yeah, and it was pretty cool show. I watched it.
Was there drama?
Oh yeah,
Of course
there was
there's
definitely
drama.
Because I feel like early '90s reality, they didn't really know that like about capitalizing on drama like at the initial point.
right.
So I felt like there was some like a bit of wholesomeness to it. When it
Yeah,
was, like,
probably not
first
to the
premiering.
extent that drama
Yeah.
happens now, like on the
Yeah.
reality.
Yeah, I don't think
I
there was
even
any
know
like
what the
Jersey
reality
Shore
shows, no.
antics or anything going on
Yeah.
in S Club.
The wife one, isn't there like a wife?
There's a bunch of wife
90 Day
ones.
Fiance.
No, I don't know that one, but in Australia, there's the big one is Married at First Sight.
Okay.
Aussies love. I don't know. It's just some show. I think people just set up two people to get married, like before, like an arranged marriage. But,
Right.
I don't
But
really
for
know.
TV.
Yeah, and then and then
Interesting.
I don't know what happens, like how.
Well, they get a
They
divorce, obviously.
So, yeah. All right, what was the second one?
Okay, so the second one is sort of like a musical turning point. What was an artist or a band or a sound that you heard where it kind of started guiding you to where you are now, I suppose. If that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. I'm just trying to think of. Well, one thing, I don't know if it guided me to this. Well, it definitely didn't guide me to a style of music I write now, but I remember when I first listened to Eminem,
Mm-hmm.
the lyrics, like his lyrics were just so like he just had something to say
Yeah.
always, and I love lyrics in general from like any singer or band, and that definitely stuck with me in terms of like always trying to, I guess, carry some sort of meaning with your songs and the lyrics that you write.
Definitely.
And the power the power that your voice or the power that a song can have and its impact on like yourself and like everyone in general society, right? Like
Hell
it's
yeah.
just...
That's a kick-ass answer, dude.
Yeah, especially with Eminem's lyricism.
yeah,
It's
yeah.
super brutally honest, but it also tells a story really easily. Like
Yes,
it paints the picture
yeah.
super easily.
Yeah, so well crafted. Yeah, I guess that's the thing too, just the craft, how well he crafted the lyrics and put it all together into a story, and like from beginning, middle to end kind of thing. His songs, especially the old stuff, I don't really know what his new music is like, but
He just
That's
released a new song with Logic.
Oh, yeah.
What was it called? Homicide.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, which is funny because Jordan, one of our friends, was saying earlier, he's like, "Hey, I released a song 2 years ago about anti-suicide, and now he's releasing a song called Homicide." He's like, "What's this guy? What's this guy got to make up his mind? Like, what's going on here?" But yeah, he just released Eminem's still.
so he's still doing
it.
stuff.
Yeah, he just released a new album. Like a few months ago,
Yeah, probably 4 or 5 months ago.
before the new year or something like
Yeah.
that.
Wasn't
Yeah.
too long ago.
So
I wish you didn't, though.
I was gonna ask, because you were saying that lyrics are like super important to you. So do you not listen to like a lot of instrumental music? Because like a lot of EDM, let's just say, is very weighted on instrumental. Like usually there's like a hook, like lyric, and that's pretty much.
I still listen to stuff. Like I still love instrumental music. I love classical music and all sorts of different, I guess for my form of expression in music, it'd be it would I would want it to include singing and lyrics.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, definitely.
But in terms of like being a fan and listening, I definitely love it. I try to like I try to like all types of music and not
Try to have an open mind.
yeah, and just like even if it's like a super popular commercial song, I'll still try to listen to it with like without the judgment that this is just some commercial.
Sure.
Who's
I
gonna
feel like
bullshit.
I'm having a stroke. I feel like I've sort of kind of annexed like any radio from my life, and it's allowed me to listen to really popular music with like a different ear because I'm not being
Right.
like beat over the head with it.
Yeah.
It's like I can listen to it on my own time and appreciate
Yeah.
that some of it is actually great,
Yeah.
but I don't have to hear it all the time to the point where I go, okay, I get it.
Yeah.
It's great.
Yeah, exactly.
yeah,
I was
that's great.
I was gonna ask, who's your favorite lyricist out of all the lyricists?
Oh,
Out
of all.
out of all the lyricists.
That's a tough one. I would. Oh man, I don't even know if I can. I'd say, like every time I think of one, but then I think of another one. It's like, oh, maybe he's better. But I would say, I would maybe like Bob Dylan is probably very, very
Safe answer.
up there for me.
Yeah, I was gonna say Bob Dylan or like Neil Young or something like that.
Yeah, Neil Young. I think I would. For me, Neil Young wouldn't be as high on the list personally. I do still think the lyrics for him is amazing, but I would even say like David Bowie for me too.
Yeah.
Just also again because of how he created stories and characters in every song and like told it in that way.
Yeah, the whole Ziggy Stardust
Yeah.
saga is one of the craziest stories ever told in music, I would think.
Yeah.
And he ended it in a funny way. He he got a whole film crew to film his final show, and at the end he goes, "You're never gonna see something like this again, because after tonight we're done forever." And they played 3 months later.
Nice. Yeah, it's cool with lyricists how like they can tell a story either by being really direct or being kind of like clever with their lyricism. Like I
Yeah.
feel like Bob Dylan was kind of like clever with like his
Yes.
like, wordplay, but then there are some people like I don't know, like Maynard from Tool, who's
Right.
really like ambiguous but still paints a picture. You know what I mean?
Sure,
Like
yeah.
it's like executing how they tell the story, and you don't have to be simple to do it.
Right.
But I feel like that's why people like. I feel like that's why pop music is pop music because
Because you get it.
because you get it.
It's just right in your
yeah.
face.
Yeah, it's just in
Yeah,
your face,
true.
and it's like
Easy.
you understand it, and you can connect with it easily.
Oh, we're
because-
dancing.
Yeah.
Oh,
right, right.
we're
We're throwing
enjoying
our hands up.
beverages.
Yeah. That's true.
We're
Yeah.
clapping our hands now. Yeah, but no, I mean like the other elements of the lyrics, I feel like people connect to really easily, and I feel like just as a result of that, that's why
Sure.
people lean more towards.
Yeah, I
that,
think
or-
you're probably right, to be honest.
Yeah, that's why when you go to the club, that music is played just because it's
Right.
so.
Yeah, nobody's trying to really unpack lyrics and
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess because it requires that extra mental thought and thinking, like, I guess thinking internally. And when
Yeah,
you're in
yeah.
a certain, I mean, a lot of people don't always like doing that, right? Like people just want to be, like, just want to deny and just be happy and exist.
Oh,
and
yeah.
kind of.
Yeah.
So sometimes,
blissful ignorance.
yeah. So I guess when you
best
put
kind.
too much of that, the intense lyrics or something in someone's face, they don't want to. Or
I
like
want to
at a-
hate
at a
myself
club,
after I listen
especially.
to a
Yeah,
record.
but it's interesting, like considering the, like let's say like the '90s and like the grunge era.
Mm.
Like think about just like the content of like what the music and the lyrics were.
Right.
Is like for that to have like broke through and been,
Yeah.
like in the forefront is like
Well, it's
really
interesting.
to see. To see where that went. You know,
Yeah.
like what it felt like. I don't know if it was like I don't want to call it the collapse, but when the kind of music industry did like a 180 during the internet age, I felt like because a lot of record labels took a lot more risks because they had just built their empires for so long, and then when they finally crumbled with the internet, they were like, oh shit, we can't take these risks anymore.
Mm.
So they kind of like latched on to like the first thing that was making them the most money, and then they kind of like manufactured that. I'm not saying that all pop music's like that, but I just mean like I kind of felt like that's what happened after the music industry kind of took a crumble, was they needed to, kind of ride the coattails of the first thing that was the most lucrative, because in the 90s there, like, everything had a shot at mainstream success, and it was pretty equal. Like, if you would watch like like music videos or stuff like that on the real, like the top 20 or whatever, it was pretty mixed. And then I just kind of felt like was maybe like the turn.
Yeah, I think I looked at a graph on this one time where pop music actually surges for like 11 to like 13 years, and then it flips to more alternative styles of music. I feel like people just intrinsically, like, I don't know, maybe it's what's going on in society at the time, but it seems to flourish in times of not prosperity, in times of like unsuredness. Like, people want to listen to like happy music, like this will get us through it, and then things start to get a little bit better and people have a little more time to think, and maybe they want to start changing how society and people function, and they start listening to music with like a little bit more depth to it. So I think you see it like kind of ebb and flow up and down just over the years.
I mean, right now I feel like hip hop and rap is probably pop is the new is the pop music. I'd say right now hip hop's like it's everywhere right now.
And you'll see like traditional pop acts, like I guess like Lady Gaga and Katy Perry, and the list can go on with artists like that, where they're incorporating huge like hip hop elements.
The ones that you just mentioned, that was the music that was behind them. And I feel like every time there's like this mainstream genre of music that people are listening to, whatever pop music is, that's like their backing music to that, what I mean? Like, even kind of like in the late 2000s or in the 2000s, let's just say, it was a lot of like band kind of like music, just like guitars, bass, and drums, but just playing whatever style, and then kind of as.
So what you're saying is pop music is a leech?
No.
Well, I think it's also the cause of when certain producers get successful, they end up producing all the pop songs, right?
That's like Max Martin.
Or like Timberland, or whatever the other guy's name is. I forget the other guy's name, but like you kind of get that the producers, like the 10 producers who are just doing everything that's commercial. And then even in like the grunge era, right, you had like Flea, when like Flea made that whole like alternative kind of his bass thing cool. He ended up co-writing with tons of artists like Alanis Morissette and
Mars
like,
Volta.
Because like there's like everyone's like, oh, we want that sound, right? And then grunge was a bit of a blanket kind of sound too, right? Everyone wants to go to Seattle to start kind of making. So you kind of I guess it's always.
I can't make grunge until I make it to Seattle.
I wonder how the Seattle music scene is when. I wonder how a music scene is when like a genre blows up kind of like from a town, like as its roots. Like, I wonder what happens to it after. Like, I wonder what Seattle's like. I don't know if you've been there.
I haven't,
like recently or at all, but like, I've never been there. But I wonder how it is like now, or you know what I mean? Just like certain cities that birth certain like genres, like like Atlanta's probably huge now.
Yeah.
So I wonder how it's gonna be in like 5-10 years.
I think people just talk about the glory days.
Yeah, so I wonder if it's just that people reminiscing about the glory days, or are they trying to like be forward thinkers? Or
it depends if people leave or not. Because if you got like true. For example, Nashville and New Orleans, right? Like Nashville, people stayed, and Nashville is now like a songwriting country, mega city, and then New Orleans, all the jazz players are there learning and playing.
Yeah, I guess it's how much identity you associate with each location, and when those artists that do kind of like transcend that location, like, are they giving back to that community that they came from?
Or are they like going to LA? Like most Canadian famous people end up doing. Like, they leave here and they end up like working out of LA, and then so when people come to a town that like somebody may have became famous on or created a cool sound, it's not even really like, you can't even work with that person in the place, right? So I feel like Seattle might be more like that from what I understand, because I don't think many of the bands or like this producers kind of really did, like, I never heard much else from Seattle after that.
Yeah, but
Yeah,
I wonder
I
if
don't
like they're
hear much.
stuck like in the grunge era. Or
Yeah,
they're, like,
yeah.
like, I wonder how like their scene, like, because you know how every local scene, like, here's a lot of
Hardcore.
yeah, here's like kind of hardcore-ish kind of stuff. So I want to know if like they're still, they got these like kids coming out of high school, like, doing grunge like
Right,
kind
right.
of songs, but maybe with like some samples or something. Like, I don't know.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, I'm just
I'm sure we could Google it and find out.
Yeah, for sure.
That was the
Well,
Seattle
it's
scene.
it's tough because
Not
like
there.
we get to, like, doing this show, we get to see like the little guys that are experimenting with sounds, which some of them are brilliant and might take off, and other ones not so much. But it's all interesting nonetheless.
Mhm.
It's really hard to come across music like that from like far away places, right? To just
right.
really zero in on like a small local pocket. You almost have to wait for it to hit a certain threshold. So there's definitely, like, I feel like tons of cool music that we just miss out on because it's not in anybody's like crosshairs. You know what I mean?
Right.
I feel like now more than ever, maybe with like the interwebs.
Yeah, it's definitely
It's,
easier now than
yeah,
it was.
it's especially with like stuff on, let's say, Spotify with like Discover Weekly.
Yeah,
That thing is like it's helped me find so many good bands. I totally underestimated that because I was
Yeah.
just like, oh, they're just gonna give me like a mix of stuff I already like, but I came across
But
some
it's
pretty
pretty
cool.
good, eh?
Yeah,
Yeah, I mean,
across some pretty good
that's the
bands.
thing too. There's so many good bands and music out there right now, and it's almost like overwhelming.
overwhelming.
Yeah, it's overwhelming to even like start discovering everything. And
I've basically given myself this weird rule where when I'm exploring for new music, there's so much of it that I can't spend too much time looking for it per se because I'll lose my whole entire life. So
right.
I'll put on something like a Discover playlist or like a curated playlist where somebody that I trust has like put some music that they think needs to be heard in the playlist, and I'll give each track maybe 15 seconds, and I know it's the worst thing to do, but I give it 15 seconds. If it hasn't caught me, that's it. It's like gone forever.
Right.
Interesting. I always give it a chance. I'll always just kind of
Yeah.
go through, because just writing music myself, it's like I know sometimes it's like if someone listens to a song that is in my catalog that maybe isn't the one that I would want, like if someone's like, hey, like what does your band sound like send me a song that kind of like describes you guys, like, and if that wasn't the song, I'd be like, oh, you got the wrong impression,
Oh, you
what I
got the
mean?
wrong
So, like,
song.
yeah, you know what I mean.
Yeah, totally.
So I don't know, that thing about, I'll always give like bands kind of a chance, or if someone's like, oh, this song, like I love this band but this new song like kind of sucks, I'll be like, well, just wait till the album comes out.
Yeah,
'cause,
true.
You never know, maybe that song that they're releasing maybe wasn't their decision to release it to
Yeah,
the
for
public.
sure.
Maybe somebody else was like, hey, that's gonna get more ears on it.
Right.
So
Yeah.
it's just, it is what it is.
Yeah. It's really
Yeah.
interesting.
Just gotta give artists a chance, though.
Yeah.
Christian,
Yeah.
don't be so judgmental.
I give them a chance.
Don't be so
I give them
judgmental.
I give them 15
First
seconds.
Give 15 seconds.
What are you, like a label head? They're like listening to songs, like the stack of CDs. You just hear 15 seconds. No, I don't want it.
It kind of is like
I
that. I mean, am I proud of it? Not really, but like there's so much tunage out there,
Yeah.
and I want to listen to a ton of stuff, but I can't be just like beating around the bush like that. I can't wait.
Where
more
do
than
you
15
listen to
seconds.
music though?
Predominantly through Spotify.
Sorry, not. I mean, like, are you?
Oh, what setting?
Yeah, like, are you just at home and you're like sitting down, like, okay, I'm gonna
So I
discover
have
new music.
monitors, like studio monitors similar to these big boys at
Yeah.
home, and I'll sit down. Like I basically have time set aside for discovering
For
new music,
specifically-
where
Oh,
I'm like
okay.
more in tune. It's not like I'm just sitting like, I don't know, waiting for the bus and like flicking
Yeah.
through things. It's like that time is set aside for
For
me to
finding-
look
Oh,
for
I guess-
new music.
I guess when you have that specific goal. in
Yeah,
mind,
yeah,
it makes-
exactly.
'cause
Like,
I was like,
it's
if
almost
you're-
like a little bit of a job in my head.
Yeah, because if you're like driving or road tripping, you just put on like a random playlist. You probably would.
Oh, I would just let it all play.
Yeah.
But I'm really like zoning in to like
Right.
get
You're
nitpicky with
yeah.
some music. Yeah.
It doesn't really sound like it if you're only giving him 15 seconds.
That is enough in my eyes. That's enough. If you
I
have
mean, it's funny, but that's kind of like how I guess normal people do listen to music
Yeah,
too,
it's
right?
true.
If it doesn't catch someone, if like in the first verse or whatever,
Yeah.
doesn't interest
and don't
them,
get
then
me
you
wrong,
switch the radio
there's
station.
tons of music where
that's
if you were to say there's this artist you have to check them out, they're great, I'll listen to the whole thing. I'm not saying like if somebody gives me a
Right.
recommendation, I'm just gonna skip it. But when I'm just going through a playlist of Joe Schmo, like little teensy bitty artists, if it's not catching me, I'm sorry. I'm gonna go to the next thing.
Yeah, no, it's true. Especially got to break through the noise, so you got to kind of.
So 15 seconds if you want to wow me.
Yeah. Well, that's what when we with our last guest Josh, he was saying that exact same thing.
Yeah.
Especially like with breaking through the noise of like now everybody gets to put their music on Spotify. Everybody has this like professional looking, clean cut platform that your music is on. So how do you now break through that? That now the playing field is totally leveled.
Yeah,
you gotta, I guess, be appealing in a short amount of time. You got to appeal to that attention span because otherwise.
I mean, that's why they have those playlists too, right? Because like Spotify also, anyone can put it on, but also the chance of random people just hearing it isn't also very likely.
Yep.
Unless you're on those playlists.
Curated.
Yeah, I mean, like I have my music on Spotify, and I don't have tons and tons of listens, and I'm like specifically going out there pushing and sharing music in like a live setting. So I think those playlists are definitely
like an important way to kind of break through.
Yeah, exactly, to break through the noise and kind of be taken more seriously, I guess.
Yeah, it's interesting in the music like world how no matter how much it's changed, there's always been gatekeepers in the music industry just to like get to that next like decent step. You know what I mean? It's like, oh yeah, sure, you can like be like a homegrown hero, but then like how do you get to start playing a lot of shows outside of your city, like we got to talk to like,
somebody's always got to have their eyes on you.
Like China or somewhere, I probably got to talk to like someone who can like get me there. It's hard to just throw yourself there, but also like how do I get on Spotify playlists? Oh, there's these guys that give you access to it, or
it's true. It's true. We're always, I guess, seeking the recommendations from someone of whose opinion we appreciate, I guess.
Yeah, for sure.
It always just seems like there's always these big doors that every musician wants to like kind of go through in at like a Three Stooges kind of thing, but really like there's just like one guy there with like a key and he's like, oh, I can just like open the door for you guys. Like, it's not
all you had to do was ask.
Exactly. It's like just asking. It's kind of like what we were saying before. It's just sometimes like it's just asking, like, so what if they don't reply back right away?
Right.
Some people, I guess, and some people feel weird about like cold calling or whatever that is, but that's
you should. It is weird, but you can do it still.
It is. It's a game. It's totally. It's like it's like networking and stuff.
Exactly.
Too,
exactly.
Like,
it doesn't feel natural, but you just do it. It's just part of it, right? So I think we're coming up close to the wrap-up point.
Cool.
Is there anything you want to plug, shout out?
What should I plug? Is this? Should I plug the show tonight, or is this live now?
This is live now, but it comes out on all the streaming platforms tomorrow, morning, basically. I'll send you a little thing when you can say, hey.
But if anybody's listening now.
You should come to Harmony Lunch tonight.
Yes.
To see me play with a bunch of awesome local bands. Everyone, I listened to everyone. They seem pretty cool.
Sad Beach Boys. I think they're releasing a project or a song or something tonight. I think that's.
Do you guys know some of the the Sad Beach Boys?
No, I've seen their name around. Okay. I haven't listened to them, but I've definitely seen them around.
Okay, cool.
And how'd you get recommended to us? Was that through Kyle, like the guy promoting the show?
Like, hit up these guys. Yeah. Just do something while I was in town.
Yeah, that's our guy.
What want to plug? I guess listen to my music on Spotify.
Hell yeah. Check out his videos. I give those a big recommendation.
Yeah, if you want to start loving life and being happy like these guys.
Ever wanted to travel?
Comment you said? It was. Oh, you said something that was hilarious about the videos, like. That I was really.
Oh yeah.
Really happy or something.
Yeah, you were like diving into a pool. He's like, "Wow, look at him go."
This guy loves his life.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. Well, thank you so much for coming out. We appreciate it.
No problem. Thanks for having me. It was fun.
Tennyson King, guys, check him out. He's fucking kick-ass artist, kick-ass music, kick-ass videos, kick-ass lifestyle. I'm kind of jealous, to be honest. Ian, do you want to come say bye? Okay, bye, guys.
See ya.